survivors will go in front of us, will start marching.
To the sound of blasts from two shofars, thousands of Jewish people from around the world, including dozens of Canadians, set out Monday on the annual March of the Living, from the gates of Auschwitz, the former Nazi death camp in Poland, to the sister camp at Birkenau, about 3 kilometers away, which housed the gas chambers where, during the Holocaust, the Nazis murdered close to 1 million Jews before the Russians liberated the camp in 1945. Of all the 36 years since the march started, this year's event was even more loaded with symbolism and grief than ever, as it was held after October 7th, when Hamas terrorists entered Israel and carried out what's been described as the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. The actual march started off smoothly enough, with 55 Holocaust survivors joining, including 6 from Canada, as well as some Israeli survivors of the Nova Music Festival and released Israeli hostages. Yet despite heavy police security, a small pro-Palestinian group set up near the route, waved flags, wore keffiyehs, and held a noisy protest as the marchers walked by. It was a scene one Canadian family on the march will never forget, including 85-year-old Harvey Wright of Niagara-on-the-Lake, after an emotional week of touring the Holocaust sites of Poland, with the murder of his own grandparents by the Nazis in neighboring Ukraine weighing heavily on his mind.
I'm trying to understand what it is that has driven the animosity and the hate that keeps coming back towards our people.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Tuesday, May the 7th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News.
I can't date women right now because I'm too busy calling myself a piece of shit.
I had a dysfunctional Jewish mother and I had a dysfunctional Native mother.
I had 25 full years of utter struggle and failure.
I started to realize the absurdity of my inability to let go of this monster of guilt.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Hi, I'm Ralph Benrig. I'm the host of Not That Kind of Rabbi, where we look at people's spiritual journeys and take a little time for their self-reflection, and maybe yours. You can get it all at the cjn.ca/NTKR or wherever you get your podcasts.
Canada sent a much smaller delegation than usual to the March of the Living this year. Just one busload of high school students went, compared to 4 buses last year. But the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, plus the spike in anti-Israel protests around the world, made worried parents keep their high schoolers at home. Montreal's Jewish Federation even canceled its trip just a few weeks ago, and organizers couldn't find even a couple of students willing to join the Toronto bus. Still, Harvey Wright was more determined than ever to go on the adult bus, if only to find answers to why the wartime anti-Semitism that the 85-year-old widower experienced when he grew up in Montreal seems to be back and making an uncertain future for his son, Dr. Erin Wright, the trip's doctor, an otolaryngology surgeon and medical school prof in Edmonton, and most of all, for Harvey's grandchildren, Abby and Zoe Wright. They both attend university, one at the University of Alberta, the other at Western in Ontario, where campus anti-Israel protests have made their experiences as Jewish students very uncomfortable this past year. The 3 generations of Wrights joined me from their hotel in Warsaw. And note, our interview was done right before the march. Welcome. It's nice to see you. So let's pass it around and say who you are and what your role is. Like, this is your first one and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Erin Wright. I am originally from Montreal, but live in Edmonton for the last 17 plus years. This is my second March of the Living. I came on the high school trip last year as the resident physician.
Hi, I'm Abby Wright. I am Erin's daughter. This is my first March of the Living. I'm from Edmonton, currently at the University of Alberta in nursing school. I just finished my 3rd year going into my 4th.
My name is Harvey Wright. Originally from Montreal, I now reside in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I am here accompanying my son, Erin, and granddaughters, Zoe and Abby, on the march. First experience for me, so far only been a couple of days, but extremely, extremely emotional, and looking for insights into our history and what the future awaits for us.
Now to the youngest. Hi, I'm Zoe Wright. I'm originally from Edmonton. I'm now just finished my second year at Western University, going into my third. And this is my first time on the March of the Living.
I did the March of the Living in 1990. Yeah, one of the first ones for CBC. But my mom was the matriarch from Montreal, so I joined her. They served radishes and hard-boiled eggs, and that was it in Poland. It was so different than it is now. The toilet paper was literally sandpaper.
Oh yeah, still
is very bad.
Bring your own next time. Let's start with your Zadie, your father, because I'd like to ask him. He said something very important. You want to know what the future holds for us. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and why this trip was something you wanted to do.
I was born in Montreal, attended Edward VII grade school, Baron Byng for 1 year before we moved out of the city to the South Shore, where we were the only Jewish family for miles around for many, many years. I'm 85 years old. I'm supposed to understand and know where this all originated and how it grows. However, I'm at a loss because I see this intense lack of trust and humanity between peoples. And I thought that this way, maybe if I see some of the current roots, the current origins of what is happening, maybe I'll understand. I'm not naive. I know there's a long, long history. However, it still is frightening when I think of my children and grandchildren, what they are experiencing or what the potential is, particularly for the grandchildren in today's world.
Let's talk to one of them. They're at university. Western is not a great place anymore for Jewish students. Tell me what you've experienced and why you went on this trip.
So I found that at Western, it's an uncomfortable environment, but I wouldn't necessarily say unsafe. Personally, until recently, there wasn't much directed anti-Semitism on campus until the recent protest where they named and shamed 3 students. And that was hard to see and hear. I'm very involved in my Jewish community on campus. So part of my reason for coming on this trip was to make sure that I'm educated on my history, that I'm able to talk about it and educate what we see on campus. Because I think a lot of what we're seeing is a lot of ignorance and a lot of just they don't fully understand, they don't know. And I think we need to be educated to be able to tell them that.
Your mom was telling me you're going to become the Hillel president incoming. So you have your work cut out for you when you get back.
Yeah, and I think being on this trip and not just seeing everything, seeing it firsthand and really feeling it, because I've learned all of this going to Jewish day school for elementary school and being Jewish in the Edmonton community. I've learned all this stuff, but it's different to see it and to feel it.
One observation I have noted, unfortunately, having been on the trip 2 years in a row now, is last year we were learning about, never again. And we all said that with great sincerity and feeling. And then, before we've even come on the trip again the following year, we've started to see once again. And so that, I think for me, is one of the things I'm struggling with, and hopefully using this experience to try to gain some insights. And it's actually going to be a little bit easier, I think, because on our trip and traveling with the university kids is Deb Lyons, who's the Canadian special envoy for fighting anti-Semitism, as well as yesterday on the bus ride back from Treblinka, we had a guest speaker on our bus in Michal Kotler-Wunsch, who is a spectacular speaker. I'm sure you've heard her many times. And some of the insights she was able to share in terms of thinking about the modern mutated form of anti-Semitism and some of the strategies that we can use to try to combat that in the context of where the Shoah happened is that much more special. So it's been so far just really, really special for me. And I'll pass you over to my dad.
What is, if anything, Holocaust history in the family or the extended family?
I think part of my motivation for being here, my mother and three of her brothers emigrated from the Ukraine in the late 30s. So they were, in a sense, they went through the war here or in Canada. However, my maternal grandparents and three of their children who were living in the Ukraine were removed from their home by their neighbors, taken to a forest and shot and buried in open graves. At this age, I still don't understand how we can be as cruel and as inhumane as we are to our fellow people. I'm not naive. I know there is hatred in the world, and I know there is injustice. However, it's beyond the comprehension of just a simple, straightforward thinking person who wants to do good for people. And I'm at a loss for words many times when I try to talk to some of our friends. And where I live now is not a very heavily Jewish area. Actually, I think I'm the only one in an immediate circle other than our synagogue congregation. They don't understand. And I'm hoping that maybe this trip will give me some more insight and the ability to try to understand and explain some of the thoughts and things that we are seeing here as we move about.
I notice you're wearing blue and white nail polish.
I am blue and white nail polish.
What are you bringing with you? What is accompanying you? What are you marching for? Tell me about the nails.
The nails, well, I'm in nursing school, so I can't usually have my nails done. And I just finished my third year and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get my nails done. And in honor of, I decided to do blue and white. They gave us yellow ribbon pins to wear on our lanyards. Clothing wise, I brought a lot of blue and white with me.
The yellow is for?
The hostages. There's definitely a lot of that in our mind, and a lot of that talked about at each stop that we're at, which is, it hits even closer to home, especially with our older sister being away in Israel right now, in the IDF. For me, that's the stuff I have with me.
My nails are all a little blue and white. I have white nails with a nice little blue evil eye there. And then same thing, I have my yellow ribbon pin for the hostages. Also lots of blue and white. And I think this is a very important trip, and I think we need to embrace that Jewish identity.
Tell me, your sister is in the IDF. I knew that she was going to go and during the October 7th, but how is that sitting with you as you're going on the March of the Living? And October 7th is a big part of it, but it's also personal.
She's always in the back of my mind. You know, every time you hear the news, you see anything, first reaction is, okay, where is she? Where's she right now? What is she doing? And I think also she was able to go on the March of the Living when she was in high school. And not being able to go when I was in high school hurt. And then now being here, knowing that once we're done in Poland and we're done with this part of it and we get to go to Israel, it's a little bittersweet, because in the past, Israel part of the trip was always so joyous. It was, this is what we get. This is, like, we've earned this. And I think going back, it's going to be a very different trip, and it's going to keep a similar tone to what we see in Poland. But it also means that I get to see my sister and be with my sister and see how she is living her life there now.
On Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom
On Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think my sister also has some stuff to share.
I've also learned throughout this whole trip how deeply rooted the crisis and issues going on with October 7th are rooted in the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. But knowing that we get to go to Israel, even though it's may not be the most safe place to be, and see our sister and embrace that identity without fear is so special. And I'm very excited for that, because given the climate, I guess in Alberta for us is nerve-wracking. It's scary. So being able to be fully myself and fully present with my identity, it just feels really easing and reassuring.
Why is it scary right now for you in Alberta? I mean, there's a protest at U of A, is there not?
At U of A, there's a lot of protests going on, and I do have some great friends, but not all of them are Jewish. So it's like the last day I finished my exam, I came out and there was an encampment and there's protests all the time, and it's nonstop, and I don't feel totally safe being myself and wearing either my jewelry or visual things with pride out of fear. And there's only so much outwardness I can portray without feeling scared. And right now that's very limited. So being able to be here and be present and be proud is really, really special to me.
Last but not least.
Well, what I'm carrying with me is my dog tag. And I'm also carrying with me an element of pride, pride that my kids are with me and my dad is here, pride that we're going to Israel, and that contrary to what happened in the 1930s is we have Israel and we can fight back. And we took a hit on October 7th as a people and certainly as a country in Israel. But we're fighting back and we're not taking this lying down. And so I think it's important that we not lose sight of that.
Has anything happened at all on this trip? Newsworthiness? Did you guys get any anti-Semitism against you? Or
no,
it's Poland, right? I mean, they hated
Yep.
Israel the last couple of years. And now they have a new government. And when we went to Majdanek, we had our jackets and some boys started to throw cigarette butts into the ashes, and it was a big fight. Like there was a really big fight between the locals and our team, because I remember.
Nothing yet. Last year, there were one or two comments when we walked as a group from the hotel to the shul on Shabbat, because a lot of the kids were wearing their kippot. Today when we were walking over, some people walking back from shul were wearing, visibly Jewish stuff like kippah, and didn't see anything. I was curious. I was watching for it. We did see the area where the Molotov cocktail hit the outside wall of the main shul here, and fortunately, there was, other than cosmetic, there wasn't any damage. But the security presence is heavy. When we were at Treblinka yesterday, when we were in Tikochin at the shtetl at the synagogue there, it was a heavy and visible presence, but that's somewhat reassuring. Our security is basically the same as it was last year, like the actual March security. There's one or two security guards with each group, and the Polish guards were quite professional last year, and they seem very much so this year.
Is there anything you want Canadians who are going to hear this, but in light of this is a different March than last year, because as you said, the world has changed. So what do you want them to understand about what this March will do?
That's a heavy question. So we're just trying to think of our answers. It's a very heavy question.
No, this March is going to be a little bit smaller than last year. Last year, because of the 75th anniversary and post-COVID, it was massive. I think it's going to be about 60% of the size. So I'm looking forward to it actually hopefully feeling a little bit more of that cohesion and closeness. It was a bit of a balagan last year. So I'm looking forward to that feeling of solidarity, and again that sense that we have overcome it and we're back, we're here, we're proud, we're marching, and we're going to continue on to Israel.
Not only are we with our community, but I'm with my sister, my father, my grandfather, which is quite literally a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I am beyond grateful to have this.
I'll just add in, my Hebrew is not good. It's emotional, but Lador Vador, I think that works. We are three generations that are here, and we're all thinking alike and feeling the emotions. I find myself crying at times when I don't know why suddenly I'm crying. We stood on cemetery grounds yesterday with no visible graves, but we know that they're there. We know that the graves are there, the people are there, the souls are there, the images in our minds are there of families children, mothers, fathers who just because, well, the old story, just because they were Jewish, there you go, you had to march off to the field.
Where was this?
This was in the forest just outside of Tikocin. That's where the residents of Tikocin ended up. And I guess my final comment would be Am Yisrael Chai.
I wish I was there with you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Ellen. Nice to meet you.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. Special thanks to Stacey Levitt-Wright, the CEO of Edmonton's Jewish Federation. She connected me with her family on the march, although she remained in Canada and didn't join them. And meanwhile, while the Canadian delegates prepare to leave Poland and head to Israel later this week for the second part of the trip, political leaders in Canada attended a solemn memorial ceremony near Parliament Hill against the backdrop of the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa. On Monday, both the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition sharply criticized the enormous wave of anti-Semitism that is currently being experienced by Jews in this country. And they said in some of the most clear terms that I have heard to date since October 7th that Jews have a right to live safely as Zionists in Canada. So we'll end the show today with some of what that sounded like. First, you'll hear Justin Trudeau and then Pierre Poilievre.
Too often over the past months, Jewish Canadians have felt and have been isolated and unsafe in their communities. People have felt unsafe to live openly Jewish lives in Canada, and that's not right. Let me be clear. In a country like Canada, it should be, and it must be, safe to declare oneself a Zionist, Jewish or not. Zionism is not a dirty word or something anyone should be targeted for agreeing with.
I know that some of you are making the heart-wrenching decision. Do I walk outside with the Star of David on my chest? Do I wear my kippah? Do I keep my mezuzah on the door? You worry about the safety of your loved ones in Canada. It is absolutely unacceptable that you should be faced with this dilemma. You must be allowed to live fearlessly and proudly Jewish lives. And it is the responsibility of every Canadian, Jewish or otherwise, to stand with your right to do that.
The CJN Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman, executive producer is Michael Freeman, and our music is by Dov Beck-Levine. And thank you for listening to the CJN Daily.
Y'all remember that joke from Airplane? The old lady asked for some light reading.
How about this leaflet, famous Jewish sports legends?
But in actuality, that's changing. Jews are crushing it in sports around the world, and we are here to celebrate them.
Sandy Koufax gets his 10th strikeout.
Zach Hyman, his first career hat trick. 41 points for Diddy Avdia. It's Sue Bird's building.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jamie.
We love Jews and we love sports, but most of all, we love kvelling over Jews in sports.
Together we host Menschwarmers, the longest-running Jewish sports podcast in the world. Listen and subscribe at thecjn.ca and wherever you find your podcasts.